So let's see this one now. We have our aggregate demand, we have our short-run aggregate supply, and we have our long-run aggregate supply. Remember, this is our potential GDP. So something has changed in the economy now where our real GDP supplied and real GDP demanded are higher. Okay, so let's see what's going to happen now. So our short-run macroeconomic equilibrium remember, that's going to be found where aggregate demand is equal to our short-run aggregate supply. So in this case, not equal here, it's not equal here, it's equal here. Okay, so at price level 110 and real GDP of 13 is our short-run macroeconomic equilibrium. So let's see what that looks like in a graph. So we have the price level here, we have real GDP here, okay, we have our aggregate demand curve, we have our short-run aggregate supply curve, okay. So our short-run macroeconomic equilibrium now is going to be 13. Okay, our price level is going to be 110. Okay, so this is our real GDP. This is how much we're actually producing as a nation. Okay, so now we want to look at our long-run aggregate supply curve, or our potential GDP. Okay, now our potential GDP is that LAS curve. Okay, so this is our LAS curve, and that's at 12. Okay, so in this case, our potential GDP is 12. Our real GDP is 13. So now real GDP is greater than potential GDP. And when real GDP is greater than potential GDP, that's called an inflationary gap. Okay, here we can see that in the graph as well. Our potential GDP is here, our real GDP is here. So here the difference, when LAS is to the left of our short-run macroeconomic equilibrium, real GDP, then we have that inflationary gap. Okay, so our inflationary gap. And again, to find the magnitude of the gap is just going to be the difference between potential GDP and real GDP. So the magnitude is going to be the difference between real GDP and potential GDP. So in this case, 13 minus 12, which is 1. Okay, so that's our inflationary gap. Okay, when real GDP exceeds potential GDP.